But to kind of round out our first session of the day here, we're going to keep on with some policy with our friends. Not our first rodeo for Katie Kaluzny from Illinois Green, but I think it is Ryan's first rodeo. So come on up. All you.
All right. Thank you, guys. And for those of you that have been here before, you've definitely seen the Katie and Brian show, but today you have the Katie and Ryan show. So I hope that you enjoy. I'm not the star of the show today, Ryan is, but I'm going to set him up. And actually, Doug Farr set us up really well to talk more about municipal policy, what we're doing at Illinois Green Alliance, and what you all can do to support policy in your communities as well. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about us. I'm going to skip right forward. For those of you that are not familiar with Illinois Green Alliance, our mission is to work on educating and advancing green building best practices through policy, through green building professionals. We're the local USGBC chapter and in Illinois, and we have been doing this for a long time. I've been doing it for many, many years, and really excited to see some of the advancements. I know that we've worked a lot on policy in the past, but we're going to focus on what we're moving in the future throughout the state and throughout municipalities as well. Our membership is made up of architects, engineers, contractors, developers, building owners, people that are impacting buildings in a lot of different ways. And so that membership continues to grow. The people attending our events continues to grow, and that's how we're able to keep kind of spreading this word and making some impact here. What we do, I mentioned it before, and we're going to focus on each of these three things while we're talking. We educate building professionals. We're advancing policy by trying to remove barriers to green building best practices, and then supporting buildings on their path to zero. So I'm going to hand it to Ryan first to kick off on what's going on the policy landscape. I'm going to take it back to tell you how we're supporting buildings, and then we're going to end with how you can help us. All right, Ryan.
Let me get reshuffled here and then we'll jump into this. But I know this audience, at least I hope this audience mostly believes that climate change is a real problem and that we need to take action to address it. If you're not, don't tell me, and hopefully this will convince you. And we're also lucky to be in a state that has taken climate change seriously compared to our peers in the Midwest, as well as the federal government. But when we examine climate change and all of the actions we can take, why buildings? Why can't we just put up some solar panels, plant some trees, call it a day? Well, when you look at really where our power, our carbon, and our emissions come from in the States, we looked at this problem in our 2024 Getting to Zero Illinois report. And we found that over a third of the greenhouse gas emissions in Illinois come from the building sector. But that's not a full story. So when we look at the Scope 2 emissions, really where the power that we generate is going, our buildings are using almost 3/4 of it. And that isn't even getting into the big AI push that's happened in the last couple of years. So really, there's no way to address climate change in Illinois without tackling buildings. And, I wish that saying climate change is real, it's a problem, it's going to affect us all, would convince everyone to take action, but it doesn't. So we have to find different ways to get people to care about the work that we're doing here. Whether that's telling people that their kids are at risk from asthma, saying that the upgrades that we've made in efficiency has saved people over $1,000 a year over the last couple decades. Whether it's saying that there's over 128,000 people, many in this room, working in the green energy workforce, or saying that we spend 90% of our life in buildings, which tells us first, we all need to go outside more, and second, that we should invest in spaces that are healthy, affordable, efficient, and resilient across the future. And we've done that to a certain extent in Illinois at the state and local level through policy, but also through the action of the private sector. Architects, engineers in Illinois were some of the first to get on board with green buildings. We had some of the first ever LEED certified buildings in the state, even going back to the demo project. I think actually FAR worked on that one at the Great Lakes Naval Station. But we've also taken significant policy steps. I know Chicago has adopted a sustainable development policy all the way back in 2009, saying if you get anything from the city in terms of zoning incentives, you have to take some steps to be sustainable as well. And then also Doug had that great slide that showed the progress we've made in energy codes over the last couple decades. Well, we've adopted a policy way back in 2009 to say that everyone in the state has to adopt the most recent IECC code. So that essentially has made flat off across the board every building built last year 30% more sustainable than something built 25 years ago. And talking more about the little chunks we've made, we talked about the benchmarking ordinance in the last session too, but even just being required to track your emissions has saved buildings who are under this ordinance 5% over the first 3 years in energy use. And that is equivalent to $15 million. So these little bites we've had at policy have made a big impact. But then in the last decade, we've really cranked it up with significant nation-leading policy. So the first being the Future Energy Jobs Act, which has really created a platform for our climate action across the state. This put a lot of money into training a clean workforce, starting solar programs across the state, implementing efficiency incentives. And to speak on really the impact that this has had, before FEJA was passed, there were only 80 megawatts of solar in the entire state. By the end of this year, there will be over 6,000. So really, really talking about the impact. I mean, it's night and day before and after these policies. And even just the utility incentives that we've put forward, over $12 billion have been spent by ComEd on thousands of energy efficiency projects. So these are real impactful things that are happening even before we get into the 2021 Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, which was a nation-leading piece of legislation tackling our power, grid, and building sector. This put a lot more funding into our renewable energy capacity, contractor training, EV workforces, and specifically for the building sector, they launched a climate bank, which has been ramping up over the past few years. We'll talk about that more, as well as putting a lot of emphasis on high efficiency building codes. At the local level, too, things have been happening. Oak Park implemented their own benchmarking ordinance, as well as adopting a new construction decarb ordinance. Chicago and Evanston have recently put money into low-income energy efficiency programs. And while that has been going on, the state has been finalizing the stretch energy codes, which is a big opportunity for municipalities to increase efficiency across the state. It sets a bar that initially is 10% higher for all buildings, but eventually will track to net zero across the course of a few decades. And we saw Evanston become one of the first in the Midwest to adopt that, as well as being the first in the state to adopt energy benchmarking and building performance standards. So these are really, really massive policies, and we're proud that Evanston has done that and hoping that more across the state will follow these leads. And while all of these are massive accomplishments, and I do not want to undersell them all, there's still a lot of work to do. We are behind on our climate goals. We need more action now in the future, and we need to be thinking bigger. But how do we do that? Well, we believe that local voices, like what Doug was saying, and I'm really glad this teed up this way, are some of the biggest ways you can make an impact. So all of these are from our campaign in Evanston to support them with their Healthy Buildings Ordinance. And they have really driven home the idea that clean buildings are not difficult. They're already feasible. They're already here. And if you want a really good one, look on the bottom right. That's our host, Benjamin, who told City Council that they shouldn't be afraid of making these upgrades, that they do pay back, and they are a good investment for cities to make. So there's no one really better positioned, in my opinion, to push for clean buildings than the people who are already building them. So moving forward, we'll talk about this a lot more, but there are a lot of opportunities right now at the local level to do stretch codes and other policies. We can help municipalities even just by learning about high efficiency buildings, but also we need to take another big step forward in terms of energy. Right now at the state level, there is a major energy package that is being debated that will have as big of an impact as CEJA and FEJA. So keep updated on those, and really help us out by telling your legislators that you want to see more action in this, because it's really important. But at the same time, we want to make sure that anything the state has done and the state or local municipalities will do will be successful. We don't want to write, draft, and advocate the best policy in the world that doesn't get implemented, that no one knows what to make sense of. So to talk about some of the ways we're helping local officials and the building sector at large, not just our core believers in sustainability, take advantage of the programs, practices, and incentives that are out there, I'll turn it back to Katie.
Well, thank you, Ryan. What a great tee up. So as Brian mentioned, one of the things that we've been hearing at the local and municipal level is the staff capacity to be able to support building owners in their community with the right resources. And so we launched the Building Energy Hub 2 years ago in 2023, try get ahead of that and to support and have this and have a place where people can go, curated resources to learn best practices, to get up to speed. So when a policy, energy policy, an energy code is passed in their community, that those municipal officials can turn their building owners to a location to get the right resources to accomplish that. So we have this hub that we started a couple of years ago with some really cool federal funding that we're going to find some brand new fund funding to continue, and have worked to really streamline access to these resources and create new opportunities for people to get connected. We're doing this through a hub network. So we've created resources here, but we're learning from others. We're not Chicago, Evanston, Oak Park aren't the first municipalities to adopt advanced energy policies. This is happening in New York, DC, Missouri, Kansas City, all over the place. And so we have a monthly call with all sorts of folks around the country that have learned best practices, have created cool resources, that have been used the most. And are pulling those together and curating them for our community. We also have a really awesome advisory board with someone cool from Cyclone Energy, Emmy up in the front row, that have local industry professionals that are making sure that we're creating things that people want to use and are sharing best practices right now. We've started anywhere from 101 resources. How do you get started with energy efficiency? What are the first steps if this is a building that has done nothing before? Where do you get started? How do you hire somebody to do something? What are you asking for in an RFP? All the way to working on a building performance and decarbonization guide. So maybe you've done those low-hanging fruit, but you're looking to make a longer-term plan. We work together with our advisory board and some friends and partners to create a larger document that helps you look at all those steps of decarbonization and planning that out over 10, 15 years of time. And then we look at curated partner resources. We don't want every building in Oak Park to have to look at 20 websites to find what's the thing that they need to be using, what are the best tools. So we've been doing that for them, finding those resources, pulling them together, putting the best ones up here and making those accessible. Same with funding and financing. The barriers we hear a lot is, how do I pay for this? There's not money for this. How do I stack things together? Ryan mentioned earlier, the Illinois Climate Bank has come out with a lot of new resources, and we're trying to amplify the message of what those resources are, break them down into bite-sized chunks that you can understand through a Finance Friday webinar series. We can learn just about those little items, as well as putting the finance options by sector of building and by eligibility, so you can figure out what can work well together for your building. And then one of the things we've been working on quite a bit is through a partnership with ComEd, the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, Slipstream, and the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, is helping to make resources available to municipalities that are looking to adopt advanced energy policies. Through a fun task force called ABEEP, the Advanced Building Energy Efficiency Policy Working Group. Super great fun that we meet a few times a year, talk about how to advance these building codes and policies, but also how all of these organizations and this network of professionals are working to help them advance them. They don't have to do it on their own as the 2 or 3 staff in that municipality that care about that item, but how can we all work together and support them in successful implementation? We also put together a really fun podcast that you should subscribe to, and I think Benny might be on it next month. So definitely check that out. It's just another way to amplify best practices and voices within our community, to share these stories, just having a lot of different ways for people to learn and hear and understand these trends. Some of our upcoming events really focus on exactly what I said, talking about the funding, the financing. We have one called The Business Case for Decarbonization, Why It Matters Now is next week. I think Emmy's speaking on that too. So using the folks in the room, using the resources that we have, amplifying the voices of people that have gone before us and done these things, and how do we share those best practices out to everyone. And in 2026, we're going to have a building retrofit summit, and I'm saying it out loud as many times as possible so that I have to actually do it. So hopefully you guys will share your projects with us and we can amplify what your best practices are as well. I'm going to turn it back to Ryan to talk about how we're, again, trying to get these municipalities moving forward. There are policy resources out there. There are all these best practices. There's all these tools and resources, but how do we get people across the finish line to pass those policies and to grow the audience of building owners and operators and architects and engineers that are working in these municipalities? Ryan? Oh, and engage with us. Don't worry about that. Here we go.
So when we worked with Evanston to help them adopt their first in the state building performance standard policy, it took a lot of time and an effort. And we were sitting at city council meetings in Evanston where they go back and forth for hours and hours and hours and hours about how are we going to pay for it? Well, we need to do this to meet our climate goals, but how are people going to know what to do? But there is all of these emissions coming from this sector. So this back and forth, it was only broken by me just emailing one of the swing votes and saying hey, if this helps, the hub has this funding resource that helps people figure out how to fund their projects. And he called me 5 minutes after I sent that email and told me that he was going to get on board with this. So it kind of blew my mind a little bit because you have these legislators who are debating massive, massive policies, but they don't have the information at their fingertips that they need to make an informed decision. There are these tools, resources, and programs that are out there, but the people who need them the most aren't aware of them. And they don't have the technical knowledge because, as many of you know, it takes years and years and years to develop that. And they are doing this in their spare time on Mondays after their day job. So there's no opportunity for them to figure these solutions out. So we started thinking, how are people going to advance policy at a local level if they don't have this full roadmap? We decided, what if we built the roadmap for them? So that brought us to the Illinois Clean Buildings Commitment. And what we are doing here is creating a pathway from a conception of an idea, I want to save my community energy, or I want to meet a climate goal. I have no idea how. well, we can pitch green buildings and all of the resources we have already for them to do so. So what we're going to do with this, we're just going to reach out to as many people as we can, find the people across Illinois that exist, that care about climate change, and that are in a position to do something about it, and tell them, hey, we can work with you to help your community build the capacity, build the knowledge, and build the trust that you need to take action. So if you'll agree with us and say that you'll do something, anything really, even if it's just sending a few emails with us, you can be a part of this. And from there, we're going to hold your hand and tell you the best ways that you can work with your community, your residents, your businesses to take action. So that's diverting people to the existing resources that we have on the hub. Maybe that's enough for some communities. For others, we can point them to a BEEP and say that there's a group that meets fairly often that has experts talk about this. Or we can meet with you once a week, once a month, however much you need to lay down a plan and every single step to any sort of green building goal that we want. And then we'll take action. So what we want to do here is really meet everyone where they're at and get them to do something. Take some sort of action that we hope will snowball into a large, large impact. So that could just be sending out the resources that we have on the hub to their businesses or residents, or it could be hosting some education events for city staff, or it could be making sure all of their city buildings are benchmarked. But eventually, we hope they adopt building performance standards and policies like that. We want to build there any single way we can. And we know every single community is going to have a different approach. They're going to need different policies. We want to be as flexible as we can, mostly because we have that capacity. So really, we just want to be the through line to help people take their own action because we have the connections that are lacking. We have the resources that haven't been gathered and distributed the best way that they could. We want to tell policymakers and communities that they can educate their community, they can educate their staff, they can take on ambitious projects for their municipal buildings, they can find the funding they need for all of this, and they can adopt significant policies that we know have worked across the state, across the nation. What we want is really any sort of first step, and we'll help them make it. So yeah. So if that's interesting to you, I can tell you more about the ways we're getting our membership involved to support that. We have a monthly policy update newsletter that tells people about the progress that's going on and the different opportunities that they can have to advocate. If you want to dive into this a bit more and collaborate with your peers in the industry on how to get the ball rolling, you can join us. We have a once-a-month group that talks over these issues. We host fairly regular advocacy events. You can see a couple that we've participated in or led earlier in the year. But most of all, just stay in touch and plug in where you can.
All right. Thank you, guys. That was great. Ryan, Katie, thank you so much. We have time for a few questions. Anybody have a question for Ryan or Katie? Well, I have a follow-up question that I asked Doug. Oh, you want to go first?
Yeah. How many of you live in a municipality that has adopted the stretch code? Just Jed. Great. So all of you can all touch base with me and Ryan afterwards. Great.
You got a lot of work to do. Same question I asked Doug. What can we do to get the policy and fast forward? And you've got committees, you've got groups, but like what actionable things are happening right now?
First.
Yeah, so we're about to start reaching out to communities across the state for the commitments right now. It's starting next week. And if anyone has any connections, I know people work with local governments in this industry a lot. Even just saying like, hey, if this is something you're interested in, as a policymaker in your community, that message comes a lot better from someone who's in the industry, someone who's not perceived as a lobbyist or with an agenda. They get those types of folks in their offices every day. So organically from constituents or stakeholders is always better. And then at the state level, there is major negotiations going on right now for clean grid and transportation issues. So if you want to tell your policymaker that that needs to happen this month, that's always a great place to start too.
There's also a data access bill, right? So if you wanted to benchmark, let's say, like Chicago did back in 2013, across the state, it's hard to get access to whole building data. And so Illinois Green Alliance is working with a number of other organizations on a data transparency access bill that's at the state right now that would require all utilities to provide full building data to anyone that asks, like ComEd does right now.
All right. Well, thank you both again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.